Hi, my name is Vicki Malta, and this is You and Your Mental Wellness. We have this show once a month on Madison Cable Access TV and New Haven Cable Access and YouTube. And I interview each month a person in recovery who's living a full and meaningful life. And the purpose is to just show that people can get better and live well in spite of the difficulties they've had. So tonight I have a guest on, Carol Cruz, and she's a graduate of Recovery University. I've mentioned that before. It's a program that is run by Advocacy Unlimited, and I think it's about a 6-week.
It's
course,
8 weeks now.
8-week course,
Right.
and they teach you a lot of different aspects of just the mental health and system and substance use, and so you graduated from that, and
Right.
then now you're a young adult and family project manager. You're
Yes.
a peer specialist at Connecticut Community for Addiction Recovery, or
Yes, CCAR
CCAR.
for short.
Right, right. So what do you do there?
Well, currently it's a new program that CCAR had gotten a pilot through the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services to bring more services and peer support into the greater Bridgeport area, in and around peer support, helping them navigate through their recovery, and getting them the resources that they need so that it becomes persons of 18 to 30 can become successful in their recovery process. And then their families, I'm working with the families that are affected by addiction. And a lot of times families forget how to take care of themselves because they've been taking care of the person that has been using drugs and alcohol for a very long time. So we do a separate programming for the families.
It just seems like there's such a burgeoning of peers and that are coming out. It's so important to have that in place, because who knows better about substance use or addiction or mental health issues than a peer. And it's not from learning from books, it's from experience. And but there were a couple other things that I wanted to ask you too. I do see here, this is the information, CCAR, Young Adult and Family Project, and you said that you were the former director of Reach Out Project, which is recovery, education, accountability, community, and hope.
Yes.
So what did that involve?
Well, I'm still the founder of that organization. Through Parent Leadership Training Institute, I started a project. It's an organization that helps to parents and people in the community become change agents. So my project, I wanted to start a peer mentor service in my community to help those youth and families, adolescents especially, because they are getting younger and younger using drugs and alcohol, and mental health is also very apparent in what's going on. They're self-medicating. So I started the organization. We became a 501c3 in the beginning of January. So it's about a year and a half that we've been up and running. We do have a couple of our peer support that are certified through the state of Connecticut, either through CCAR's Recovery Coach Academy or through the Recovery University. And also we we're looking to find a location where we can open a center. We're looking at a small location in the Devon section of Milford to open a youth and family center.
So you've got both of those things that you're juggling right now.
Yeah, well, I'm on the board with the Reach Out Project. I did step down from the executive director role, so I am on the board. But it's great to see to bringing the community together and working on the same solution rather than looking at the problem.
Right, right. Now there was another thing that you told me about too, which I need a little bit of clarification about. You said that you were involved with something called the Aware Recovery Care, which is an in-home care model for recovering addicts. Is that part of the other two, or is it
No,
separate?
actually, they're a separate organization. They're actually here in Madison. They started their company about 4 years ago. They've been featured on Channel 8 and Channel 3 News most recently, and they have taken on one of the major insurance companies because originally they were basically out-of-pocket care. There where I did my internship, and Aware Recovery Care with Steve Randazzo being one of the founders, believe they put together this whole concept that in-home care, because people with recovery needed longer term treatment. We were worth more than 5 or 28-day treatment centers.
Right.
And folks were coming out and they were relapsing, especially adolescents not being able to navigate through this world of recovery, not knowing what that really looks like. So they put together this concept of 52-week program, and they matched them up with a recovery coach, which they call a certified recovery advisor. They meet with a psychiatrist, LPRN, one of the
LPN.
Yes, that administers medication, and they also see that psychiatrist. So that person is with them through that whole 52, that team, I should say. It's not just one singular person, it's a team of persons. Just like if someone, was an elderly person that needed in-home care, they get a nurse, they get a doctor.
Like
so
an ACT team in a way?
like an ACT team, like an
group
ACT.
of people that can all come together to
Right,
help the
and they
person.
also, the recovery coach introduces that individual to their a few 12-step meetings, and helps them on that way to their recovery, because we know that there's multiple pathways to recovery.
Right, right. Now I wanted to ask you about yourself too, like your life before your recovery, because you have an amazing story from what you told me when I met with you
Yeah.
before, and I really want you to tell people about your experience with sobriety and the gift that you had, this spiritual experience you had. So why don't you tell me a little bit about
I'll try to keep it brief.
Yeah.
Well, I've been 21 years of recovery. I just celebrated back in September 26th. And, I had gotten pregnant. I had tried many times to try to get clean and sober. My family, my mother was also in recovery, and I just struggled with it for a very long time. I wasn't also a teen user, and there wasn't a lot of programs out there for adolescents and teens back then. So when I got clean and sober at 31, well, I'll just take it back a minute. I was pregnant with my son. I hadn't stopped using. I reached out to the hospitals and different treatment centers, but they wouldn't take me because I was too far gone in my pregnancy. I eventually went on the methadone program and did go to counseling. And when I had my son, I still didn't put down the drugs. There was the
And
day.
This was in Bridgeport.
This-
You were
yeah, I was
waitressing and
At that time, I was unemployable. I could not hold down a job. But prior to that, when I moved out here to Connecticut, that was what I went right to, is waitressing or bartending. And I quickly got involved with the wrong crowd once again. My disease was calling me, and I ended up relapsing. But when I had my son and I brought him home from the hospital, I had still used that morning, and I thought I was hallucinating, but I heard him crying in his crib, and I went to his room, and eventually, I don't know how long it took me to get out of the bathroom where I was, but the window was open in his room, and I didn't remember opening it, and when I looked down at him in the crib, his eyes were bright, these big brown eyes that were so bright, and he had a hard time. We had to keep the lights very dim in his room because he was affected by the substances that I used during my pregnancy with him.
it's a miracle that he was okay, that he was born.
He had to detox, and that he didn't come home with me right away. But when I looked down at him in the crib, and his eyes got really bright, and I just felt this spiritual feeling that coming across me, that his eyes were telling me, "Mommy, please stop. I need you." And I immediately hit my knees, and I don't know how long it took me from that point to get on the phone with my mother. That was also, she had already over 20 years of recovery from alcoholism. And, you know, I reached out to her, and she told me where there was a meeting, and I didn't go to a meeting that day, but the next day I did, and it ended up being a women's meeting. And it was the best thing that could have happened to me. When I walked into that woman's meeting, I was literally home. I felt my, you know, it was so tense, and when I walked in there, felt so relaxed. One woman sat me down, another one gave me a cup of coffee, another one tended to my son. And by the time they had it in a circle, and by the time they got to me, I was just done. I was beat down, you know, just tired, and I just wanted to get well. I just wanted to get well, and it's been that road of recovery for me ever since.
That's amazing. So these were people that understood what you were going through and were helping you along the way.
Yes.
And you mentioned something else too about a woman in an elevator with a blanket situation.
Yeah. The day after, I left the hospital, I was out of the hospital within 2 days, and my son, they kept him for 3 to 4 days. And I had went back to visit with him, and I got on the elevator, and a woman was asking me where I was going. I told her I was going to the nursery. And she said, well, I have some blankets here for she gives them to children that have been in intensive care. And my son didn't have to go to intensive care, thank God. He was born 6 pounds, 13 ounces, and he came full term. And so she handed me a blanket. And when I got off the elevator, one of the nurses asked me where I had gotten the blanket from. And I said, you know, this woman I spoke to, says that she brings these blankets all the time to, you know, children in ICU, and the nurse said, there is nobody that brings blankets, and it was one of those weird experiences, and I felt she was an angel in disguise, and you know, my son has that blanket to this day. I mean, I have it at the house. He's in college now, but I have that blanket to this day.
So it was almost like some kind of a spiritual guide that came down to just to touch you and reach you.
And I've had a lot of moments like that. And, you know, those glimpses of the, you know, not the huge burning bush experiences, but those glimpses of miracles that have happened. Because, you know, even though I was in recovery and I put down the drugs and alcohol, I still had life skills to learn all over again. You know, I had to remain teachable. And it was allowing people in my life that had that experience, had that lived experience, that really guided me and helped me along my way.
So after that experience, you really began your journey of recovery, and all along the way, did you feel that there were supportive people, as like the women in the women's group? And
there was women in the women's group, and ironically, because I had DCF in my life, Child Protective Services, for a short period. I didn't have them for a long period, thank goodness. But my DCF worker, she treated me like a human being. And every time she'd come to my door, she'd give me a hug and say, hey, what's the plan today, Carol? And I think that made the world of difference. It took me off feeling like I had to be on edge all the time, and that somebody was looking over my shoulder. If I made the slightest mistake, they were going to take my son away from me, and that wasn't the case. She actually got me into an outpatient program once I detoxed from methadone. She had gotten me some psych evaluation and we found out that I had PTSD and depression. So I do have a mental illness as well, and I've lived with it, and I work with it naturally. I don't take any type of medication. I do a lot of natural things like yoga and, you know, take vitamins and things like that to help me with any anxiety or depression. But she was just a wonderful person, and I just found out recently she had passed away. She was young. She was only 63.
Oh.
And we became friends on Facebook. And she lived in the
nice.
town right next door to me. And but I got to meet a lot of her coworkers because going fast forward, I was this past March, I was asked to speak in front of DCF and DMIS, the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and Child Protective Services, and share my story, and also say that it's a collaborative effort. It really needs all the services that are out there. I felt like I was really the lucky one. And there's a lot of us out there, but I hear a lot of stories from women that don't get that chance, get that second or third chance, and really struggle to get their kids back, or they're being jailed for very minor issues, domestic violence and things like that. And I think if there was a peer support at every table, at every treatment center, at every table when these agencies were talking, I think it would make a world of difference for the person that they're working with.
Right, right. So Raymond really was the catalyst for your recovery,
Yeah.
and so he must be so proud of you today, that how you're doing, and just so happy that you're doing well and taking care of yourself. And you must be so proud of him too, because I know that you said that he's in college now, and you said I think you said he's studying social work.
Yep.
And
Yeah, he's studying social work, and yeah, he's my hero. And he says, "Oh, Mom, please stop telling everybody I'm your miracle baby," and he will. He's 6'6". He was born 6 pounds 13 ounces, and he's 6'6" today. And he plays football at the college that he goes to up in Springfield, Western New England, and. He just decided last year that he wanted to change his major from accounting to social work. And again, you let him go his own path, and I'm just very supportive of him. He's a miracle. He literally is a miracle. I mean, he had some learning struggles, along the way, but again, we pulled together, we asked questions, we pulled together different resources in the school. I became an advocate, and then I taught him how to become an advocate for himself. And that's what he does up at school. When he's struggling with something, he makes sure that he talks to the services, health services, and he'll get a tutor or somebody, a mentor, to work with him so that he can, because he initially is in his own process of recovery, and I always say that he survived my addiction. So
right, and now you're working in a field where you're helping other mothers of children, and so it must feel, it's definitely not just a job; it's a calling. What you're doing now,
it's definitely a calling.
It's a gift, and being called to give back to other people. I think that's about the most gratifying thing you can possibly do, is to work and help make a difference in other people's lives.
It's gratifying, and sometimes it's a little frustrating, because you want the best for those, and you want people to get it. I know it took me 4 times, coming in and out, different. I was in several different detoxes and treatment centers, from 1989 to currently, till 1994, when I finally got clean and sober. And but it's meeting people where they're at. That's a clinical term you hear a lot. And it basically, at first I didn't understand that when I first heard of it years ago, when I took, some training and got a certificate for something. But it's truly meeting them where they're at. If it's housing that they need, then that's what you help them with. If they're still drinking, you still help them with the housing, and you hope eventually, once they get settled and they see that they're getting the support, that the drinking doesn't become the main focus, that it is about keeping a stable home,
Right.
or keeping a stable job. And you see that a lot of times, like CCAR has 3 centers in Connecticut. It has in Hartford, Willimantic, and Bridgeport. And we, on average, see 150 people walk through the center on a daily basis.
Wow.
And some of them are just looking to utilize the computer or get a hot cup of coffee, sit in for one of our all recovery meetings. We don't have a 12-step meeting. We call them all recovery meetings. It's like, come as you are, whatever you're affected by, whether it's drug and alcohol, gambling. That's what those meetings are there for. And it's a peer-centered center that helps support folks for where they're at, wherever they're at.
Right,
You know?
right. I think that's great. You can't push somebody. They have to be ready to
Right.
make a change.
Right.
And I know that Connecticut is one of the leading states in the country with all the programs that they have to offer.
We could use more, though.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
could always use more.
But I think it's cutting edge. You know, like maybe 20 years ago they didn't have that. Now, it's legitimate. You know, it's so important to have peer workers. You know, in a lot of different places, and there was just a couple other things. I know we don't have too much time left, but these are things that just we were talking about too that I wanted you to elaborate on, not necessarily regarding your life, but you told me about a Netflix documentary with Greg Williams, who was a narrator, called Anonymous People. And could you just explain that a little bit about
Sure.
what
Well,
that is?
I'm gonna kind of go backwards. Just this, not this last weekend, but the weekend before, October 4th. I was in D.C. Greg Williams lives in Danbury, Connecticut, and he's a young filmmaker. And he put together this documentary with the help of some stars. I don't know if you'll know like Christian Johnston. There was a basketball player, Chris Herron. These are all people that were willing to come out of the shadows and talk about their story. And that was basically why he called it the Anonymous People, because we've been anonymous way too long. I believe there, 12-step programs that have anonymous in it is really important for those that do not want to come out. But for myself, like I said, I'm a person in long-term recovery. And so Greg put together this documentary, and you can get it on Netflix. You can order it online. I suggest anybody, even if they're not in recovery from anything, to watch it, because it really talks about, how just even like the AIDS movement was so powerful, and when people are diagnosed with cancer, and how people rally together and help those persons. But we get jailhouses, and we get 5 or 28-day programs. And so on October 4th, over 60,000 people showed up with pictures of loved ones that have passed away due to drug abuse and overprescriptions of prescribed opiates that is going on. It's not even just statewide, it's across the nation.
Right.
That we have an epidemic of opiates. Excuse me, I have something itching my nose. So Greg took the catalyst of that movie, that documentary, and brought it into this event that we were a part of on October 4th. And it was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we had different stars that were up there singing, Sheryl Crow and Steven Tyler. But that wasn't the basis of it. The day before was called the Fed Up Rally, and it was parents and loved ones, mothers, fathers, sister, brothers, that they had pictures and stories. And if you just sat in front of, or stood in front of all around, or had them all around you, you heard their stories and of their love lost. And it was just an amazing event, and it really set the tone to what was going to happen on Sunday,
Right.
Which was the rally for Unite Facing Addiction.
I was there, so I experienced some of that.
Okay.
And I think that I heard them say that like 23 million people are affected by substance addiction, and
Well, they say there's 23 million people that are affected and are in recovery, but there's still another 22 million that are affected and need treatment. And they're dying out there trying to get treatment through their insurance companies. I mean, our insurance companies today are driving, telling us, oh, we're only worth 5 days or 28 days of program.
So it must have been a really thrilling experience
It
to be
was.
down there.
It
And
was.
did you go down with a big busload of people?
No, actually, I went down because I wanted to stay a couple days because I stayed on the last day on Monday for
the
Hill Day.
Advocacy Day?
Yep, the Hill Day, and saw Dr. Oz and whatnot. And,
Oh, wow.
but no, went down with a friend and her daughter, her 12-year-old daughter, and another friend we picked up along the way that was in New Jersey. So we shared a room, the four of us. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. I just hope that, I think it's going to make a huge impact on
It
how
already is.
Yeah, how people
There's a
see it.
huge buzz, what I feel that everybody brought back to, hopefully to their state was enthusiasm and drive and passion to want to make a change and share that, us that are in recovery, we have a voice and it needs to be heard.
Right, right. Well, the final thing I just want to ask you, there's only about a minute left, but I just wanted to ask you, what would you say to people who are watching and struggling, and maybe what's your definition of wellness and recovery in about a minute?
I'll keep that quick. Well, there's a tagline that we used during our recovery walk this last September on the 12th, and recovery is possible. And don't give up hope. Wellness comes in all shapes and sizes. Is not 9 to 5. And hopefully we can get you connected. If you need help, please give anyone a call that is in source of recovery. Even if you have to step into a 12-step meeting, if you've never been in there is help and there's hope, and it's all possible.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I'm really
Thank
glad
you.
I had the chance to talk to you.
Thank you.
Was and I just want to thank Jeff Hansen, the production staff, and Abigail White and the audience for tuning in. So we'll be here next month. So hope to see you next month.